Third-person shooters these days are among the most cinematic experiences ever, boasting visuals, mechanics, and storylines that could rival any Hollywood blockbuster. These games have blurred the line between films and interactive offerings, creating worlds so immersive they are hard to distinguish from the silver screen. But many are not aware of the humble origin of the third-person shooter genre, a journey that began during the early days of 2D graphics, a time when innovation meant pushing the boundaries of gameplay, often against severe technical limits. Some titles emerged as true trailblazers, setting the foundation for the core mechanics we see in every shooter today. One such game is Kill.Switch, a title that would revolutionize third-person shooters, introducing mechanics we now consider essential. It brought the blind fire, duck for cover, and offensive cover to the forefront. Three features so foundational today we forgot that they were once an innovation. But as groundbreaking as Kill.Switch was, it would soon be lost in the pages of gaming history, a pivotal title, overshadowed and eventually forgotten. Kill.Switch faded quietly, leaving behind only faint echoes of its influence on the genre. How did this game come to be? What made Kill.Switch so special? And why, despite its groundbreaking influence, did it fade from the spotlight? This is the story of Kill.Switch and the cancelled sequel. Dead to Rights was a game built to celebrate the intensity of Hong Kong cinema, a world of relentless action, stylish slow-motion gunplay, and the thrill of being the powerful man in the room. For players, taking cover felt almost unnecessary. The action was meant to be direct, in your face, leaving little room for hesitation. But for Matt Sentel and Chris Isaki, this approach felt lacking. They weren't satisfied with how the cover mechanics were sidelined. To them, cover-based tactics brought a deeper, more immersive element to gunfights, one they felt the genre desperately needed. Unwilling to compromise on their vision, they set out to create a game of their own, a game that would make cover shooting, blind firing, and tactical movement essential to survival. This would be a game unlike Dead to Rights, a title built around strategy as much as style. Namco Hometek had made the game Dead to Rights. Chris Isaki and Matt Sentel both really disliked the Dead to Rights game mechanics. It was kind of a cross between a point-and-click adventure and a series of mini-games, but thought it would be cool if the game had real shooting mechanics. So I whipped up a version where you control the Dead to Rights character as a third-person shooter. Since the Dead to Rights character had one puzzle where he could take cover, I had an animation where he took cover behind the wall and could shoot out, so I used it. When you were close to a wall, you could take cover by holding the button. Chris Isaki was in love with the idea and riffed off from there and made Kill.Switch. The roots of the project trace back to late 2001, but the game's journey was anything but straightforward. Early on, Kill.Switch was a project in flukes, cycling through codenames and even a range of themes. Originally, the game only had an over-the-shoulder zoom, but associate producer Scott Crisostomo really wanted to implement something that wasn't frequently used in third-person shooters at the time. I do remember the game used to just have an over-the-shoulder zoom, but I really wanted EDS. Sentel wasn't convinced, so a programmer, Joey Emsley, and myself spent some of our free time working on it. Sentel liked it, so it got to stay in. I believe it was one of the first console games with EDS. According to associate producer Scott Crisostomo, Kill.Switch went through several transformations. Originally envisioned as a modern, futuristic action title, the team experimented with high-tech gadgets in a world beyond our own, but that vision was short-lived. They soon tried a new city in Vietnam before ultimately settling on a modern, Middle Eastern-inspired environment. The actual development time after we did a lot of pivoting was only 9 months. First it was near future modern, then alternative history Vietnam, then futuristic, then circled all the way back to near future modern. I can't remember how long we were pivoting for, either 6 months or a year. This shift in setting was more than just cosmetic, it shaped the mechanics, the tone, and the game's entire identity, grounding it in realism that heightened the tension and made every cover duck, every blind shot feel that much more vital.
Base, this is Control. I've got the prototype at the extraction point. Initiating system shutdown.
This turned out much better than I expected. How did it feel?
Like I was playing a video game.
Kill.Switch didn't just introduce innovative mechanics, it revolutionized an entire genre. Games like Gears of War took notice of its well-executed blind fire and cover system, mechanics that would go on to define a generation of shooters. But where did these ideas come from? After reaching out to Scott Crisostomo, he told me that the cover system was inspired by Namco's arcade classic Time Crisis. The intense on the edge of your seat gameplay of Time Crisis served as a foundation, but Kill.Switch took it a step further, moving from the arcade to a realistic immersive battlefield experience. What Isaki always preached was that in Kill.Switch you grabbed cover as you held in the trigger. As Alvin Muelich, the creator of Kill.Switch story, explains, the game was deeply rooted in the visceral reality of military conflict. The vision was clear, to capture the feeling of being a lone soldier, navigating the chaos of war with nothing but your instincts and your weapon. The gameplay and the story were both conceived at different times. The producers of the game, Matt Senthal and Chris Isaki, wanted to create a new action game that conveyed what they perceived as being the essence of modern warfare. From the shattering walls to the clouds of dust, Kill.Switch set out to capture every sensory detail of combat. Namco Hometek wanted players to feel the weight, the pressure, and the tension of a soldier's reality, a feeling rarely achieved at the time. To bring the vision to life, Namco Hometek needed an engine that was as practical as it was powerful. For Kill.Switch, they turned to the renderware engine, a choice that would prove instrumental in shaping the game. Renderware was known for being cost-effective and time-efficient, giving developers the flexibility to create high-quality 3D graphics without the steep investment of building an engine from scratch. For Kill.Switch, it was the ideal platform to develop a third-person shooter. Many wondered how Namco handled the marketing of Kill.Switch. At the time, Namco had no idea that they possessed a powerful product that would single-handedly shape many of the core elements in modern third-person shooters today. In an effort to increase the game's visibility, Namco's marketing team leaned on grassroots tactics. A limited edition t-shirt featuring the Kill.Switch logo was handed out to attendees of E3 2003, making it a collectible for those lucky enough to grab one. Printed advertisements were also rolled out across various gaming magazines, showcasing the game's gritty action and the important mechanics. Take cover, take aim, take over. Namco aimed to reach hardcore gamers through these ads, but perhaps its most effective move came in the form of demo discs. Demos for Kill.Switch were included in popular gaming magazines like the official Xbox magazine and the official US PlayStation magazine. If interested, I uploaded a video of the prototype demo showing 2 playable levels from start to finish. After 2.5 years in the making, Kill.Switch was finally released on the PS2 and the Xbox. A European release for the Xbox, however, was cancelled. 2003 was a landmark year for shooters, and Kill.Switch found itself up against some fierce competition, with titles like True Crime, Max Payne, Judge Dredd vs. Death, Deus Ex Invisible War, and the newly released Titan, Call of Duty. Critics recognized Kill.Switch for its innovative combat mechanics, immersive sound effects, and an AI system that brought enemies to life on the battlefield. But while its gameplay was praised, the story's complexity and the game's relatively simple level design left some critics wanting more. As positive as the reception was, Kill.Switch didn't walk away with any awards or even nominations. Yet despite its modest critical reception, its blind fire and duck for cover mechanics made waves among players and, more importantly, other developers like Cliff Bleszinski. In a bold move to broaden its reach, Kill.Switch was ported to 2 additional platforms, PC and the Game Boy Advance. The PC port, developed by the Bitmap brothers, featured enhanced textures, smoother frame rates, and full support for keyboard and mouse. The GBA version, developed by Visual Impact, aimed to capture the console release on the handheld, a technical marvel given the GBA's limitations. Despite being an impressive feat of engineering, the GBA port, like its PC counterpart, has largely been forgotten, also fallen into the realm of abandonware. Sales data for the PC and GBA ports remain elusive, but the overall performance of Kill.Switch was not the best. While it didn't match the commercial success of Dead to Rights, its humble sales numbers were enough to spark interest within Namco Hometek, leading to the greenlighting of a sequel. Very few know of its existence. Following the release of Kill.Switch, the developers at Namco Hometek began working on a follow-up. But this sequel wasn't going to be a simple continuation. It was set to take the franchise to new heights, under a new name, The Adversary: City Under Siege, planned for the PS2 and the Xbox. Unlike its predecessor, which took place in a near-future setting, The Adversary: City Under Siege was envisioned as a sci-fi epic. It promised improved shooting mechanics, the ability to pilot mechs, and, most notably, an up to 16-player online cooperative and a deathmatch mode, a feature that was on demand at the time. Associate producer Scott Crisostomo described The Adversary as a bold evolution of Kill.Switch. It was designed to improve upon Kill.Switch, offering a fresh take on third-person shooting while retaining the mechanics that made the original a great game. When I talked to Scott Crisostomo, he told me that the game was showcased at E3 2004, where it captivated players with its cooperative gameplay and advanced features. He also said that a demo existed. For years, many speculated about why The Adversary: City Under Siege never materialized, why Kill.Switch 2 never happened. Many assumed the cancellation was due to Kill.Switch's modest commercial and critical performance, but the truth is far more complex. Gail Colgate explained the decision in an interview with Ross Sullivan of Games That Weren't. He recalled that internal disagreements and strategic shifts within Namco played a major role in shelving the project. The Adversary from Namco was going to use the Kill.Switch engine in the different storyline world. It was shown at E3 2004. It looked really good. On Xbox we had up to 16 players in a shootout mod, with cover, tall grass that would bend when the player was in it. We were planning to use mechs that the player could climb in and out of. For a while it was called City Under Siege, but our chief operative officer put the kibosh on it. He was later fired. I think he couldn't see a way for him personally to make money out of the project. However, the most damning revelation came from John Mondi, who revealed in a German interview that Namco of Japan actively blocked any efforts to promote or support The Adversary: City Under Siege. According to Mondi, Namco of Japan viewed the project as a risk, prioritizing other ventures over the American team's bold vision. Below, I'll share with you a lengthy interview segment of John Mondi speaking about Kill.Switch, the Adversary situation, and how Namco of Japan sabotaged the project.
Kill.Switch was not a game that the high bosses at Namco in Japan were looking for. We had no robots, no cute prepubescent girls with immobile 10cm skirts, and no cute critters to collect. I greatly exaggerate these stereotypes, but pure military shooters were not part of what Namco of Japan wanted at the time. Kill.Switch's two project managers, Matt Sentel and Chris Ezuki, were given a small budget and a small time frame in which to make the game. Namco Hometek, then the US branch of Namco, was looking for a profitable game to prove that the US studio was a success. Sentel and Ezuki dared the challenge and chose a small, highly focused game. I am rather disappointed that Namco never gave us the opportunity to refine the game and the mechanism in such a way that it immediately became something special. Epic and the Gears of War team succeeded in that. It is no coincidence that the coverage system ended up at Gears of War. Chris Ezuki was due to work for Microsoft Game Studios after Kill.Switch and was a design director in developing Gears of War. He worked directly with Cliff Bleszinski to perfect the coverage mechanism. If we had ever had the opportunity to be allowed to make a Kill.Switch 2 or a spiritual successor, it could have been something very special. The adversary introduced ducking as a way to take cover, even when there was no cover. At the time, we demonstrated a multiplayer level at E3 2004, whereby you were completely hidden from other players by ducking in the grass. It slowed down the gameplay and made for a fun cat and mouse game. People who had played our multiplayer demo of the adversary at E3 couldn't get enough of it. You could see the excitement in their eyes when they played the two levels we included. Namco did not include us in their press materials, so all the game journalists skipped our part of the E3 booth. Whether this was intentional or not, we will never know, but we were shortchanged. There were several rumors as to why this happened. Either there wasn't enough money, or Namco preferred to spend it on Hellgate London. It seemed that the Japanese bosses at Namco didn't want another Kill.Switch in their hands. While I don't know the business case, my gut tells me that Namco was not a company that was waiting for military shooters. Some members of the Kill.Switch team ended up elsewhere, working on Gears of War and Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
With no support from its parent company, the adversary City Under Siege was abandoned, leaving behind a promising concept that would never see the light of day. But this wasn't just the end of Kill.Switch's sequel. The cancellation was only the beginning of a larger tragedy, the untold story of Namco Hometek and the events that led to its ultimate closure. Working as an American or European branch under a Japanese parent company has always been an uphill battle. For Namco Hometek, it was no different. Despite some of its achievements like Pac-Man World and Dead to Rights, the shadow of Namco Japan loomed large, and as seen with Capcom's handling of Maximo, Namco Japan had no hesitation in killing franchises it deemed unnecessary. Kill.Switch was no exception. After the release of Kill.Switch, Namco Hometek entered a period of chaos. Layoffs, cancelled projects, and internal strife became the norm. The creative spark that had defined the studio deemed as developers left in frustration. Considering the branch as a financial liability, Namco Japan started implementing several management changes that affected both teams responsible for Dead to Rights and Kill.Switch. For starters, Namco of Japan lost its faith in its American branch and turned to seek support from third-party developers. This affected the development of several games, including Dead to Rights 2, as the game had to be downgraded to meet the intended deadline. In my search for answers, I reached out to former developers hoping to salvage some fragment of Kill.Switch's legacy. Most declined to respond, unwilling to revisit the past. Only James Darknell, an artist on the project, offered a reply, expressing his desire to leave it all behind. In the end, Namco Hometek was ultimately restructured into a hollow shell, tasked solely with publishing Namco Japan's games in North America. Both the Kill.Switch and Dead to Rise teams were ultimately disbanded, along with the cancellation of several games. What had once been a hub of creativity was now an empty vessel. Though Kill.Switch was forgotten, its spirit lived on through its creators. Chris Isaki joined Epic Games, where he helped shape Gears of War, a franchise that perfected the cover shooting mechanics Kill.Switch had pioneered. John Monty and others moved to Infinity Ward, eventually contributing to the groundbreaking Call of Duty Modern Warfare series. Scott Crisostomo ended up working on several projects for Activision and Ubisoft. Later, some of these talents reunited at Respawn Entertainment to develop Titanfall, which echoed the co-op and sci-fi ambitions of the adversary, City Under Siege. The closure of Namco Hometek was a tragedy for those who worked there, but its legacy is etched into the DNA of modern shooters. The mechanics introduced revolutionary elements, influencing titles that would go on to define an entire genre. The developers behind renowned games like Uncharted, Rainbow Six Vegas, CT Special Forces Fire Sure Effect, and Killzone Liberation stated Kill.Switch's cover system was the main inspiration. In the end, Kill.Switch's untold history acts as a reminder of what developers usually go through and what they fight for to bring their vision to life, even in the face of corporate indifference. Neither Kill.Switch nor City Under Siege are making a comeback. Namco of Japan had made it abundantly clear that they have no plans to revisit the series. Adding to the disappointment, Kill.Switch is not backward compatible on Xbox consoles, and its PC port remains abandonware, stranded in a limbo where it awaits a potential revival on platforms like GOG. Yet even in its absence, Kill.Switch continues to leave an indelible mark. Its innovations in cover-based shooting and tactical combat laid the groundwork for countless games that followed. While the series may be gone, its legacy endures, a testament to its influence and a bittersweet reminder of what could have been.